Reality is an illusion upon which we are all constantly learning within. This is Skull Babylon, and you're about to listen to episode 98 of Paradigm Shift Radio, in which we talk about magic, aliens, and the occult with our good friend Seekah, a conscious hip-hop artist. What is magic? How can gaining a better understanding of the term help us evolve our relationship alongside and within reality? Are aliens perhaps more multidimensional than we give them credit for? And how are these and other topics that have been occult helping change and empower us to become better co-creators? These topics and more are covered within this shifty conversation as we continue to shed light and explore together. Paradigm Shift is an interactive and evolving community that we encourage you to get involved with. Tune in for future episodes and consider helping create a physical Paradigm Shift community where you are to find the others and build the tribe. Even simply by listening to the ideas within this show is helping expand consciousness as a whole. So thank you for your contribution, expand those branches outwards, and enjoy the flow. One love. Magic. Magic is not something external and separate from this world. Magic is the very foundation upon which this reality is built upon. International friends, thank you once again for joining us. This is your good buddy Brendon, aka Skull Babylon, aka Skull the Wolf, here with you for a special edition of Paradigm Shift Radio. And what makes it so special? Well, the fact that you're here, you're with us, you're listening makes it pretty special to begin with. But those of you who aren't listening to this live, this is actually a special episode that we're doing on a Wednesday evening. And the reason why we're sort of bending with the wind on this one is because we need to make special circumstances in order to make sure that this episode can happen. And this episode is going to be about magic, aliens, and the occult with our good friend Seekah, who is a conscious hip-hop artist, and his schedule sort of conflicts with the regular Sunday schedule, and he's a really awesome guy, has a lot of knowledge to share. He actually does a podcast, online radio show that he operates on his end, and we've been working on this idea to make it happen, and since we can't do it on Sunday, we gotta say, hey, we gotta make special time for this. So here we are, a special Wednesday edition of Paradigm Shift Radio, and just making sure that we got everything set up and in place to make sure that this episode is going to be as good as possible for everyone. And hello to everyone in the live chat. We'll be getting started with the actual conversation in the next minute or so, but in the meantime, just inviting you guys to please let more friends know about the show. We got 21 users in the live chat. Show to everybody who's listening and tuned in whatever fashion. And of course, just let more people know that Paradigm Shift Radio is going live, and this is free educational content at the click of a finger, at the click of a mouse, at the reach of an arm away from wherever you are right now, that can literally help change your life. And through changing your life, you sort of change the collective, which is really what this is all about. This literally is about the shifting of the paradigm, changing the way we think. And through changing the way that we think, it changes the way that we interact and that we create within this reality, which is a common recurring theme. This is really about letting go of fear and empowerment. So, of course, there's been a lot of stuff that's been happening on my end, but I don't really need to bore you guys with that. There's been a little bit of a pause since the last Paradigm Shift Radio that we had, which would have been about lucid dreaming, which wasn't too long ago with our good buddy Thomas Pizell. And between then, I was actually at a conscious festival here in Canada, and it was the first one that I'd been to in Canada, the Om Festival. And if people are listening from the Om Festival, big shout out to them. It was a super awesome experience, really cool for me. There was skinny dipping at the end. That was one of my highlights. And I don't really need to talk too much about it, but just letting you know that it did happen. It was an awesome gathering of amazing people who have intention to help make this world a better place, and through the transformation of the self, through the internal alchemy, that is how we do that. So that was really cool. That happened. In terms of other stuff, yes, I'm still working on the post-production editing for Journey to Lucidity. That's the full-length movie, the sequel to the one that I did last year. This is Journey to Lucidity 2. You can check it out at gofundme.com/Journey to Lucidity 2 to get hooked up on the early access to that. And I'll let you guys know about that as we continue going along. And I know there's all sorts of stuff that people are up to on their end, and just keeping it shifty wherever you are. Last night was Canada Day here in Canada, and I was doing my free hugs, shift button, superhero tactics out on the streets and helping unplug people from the matrix. And of course, just reminding you guys that the shift buttons are awesome tools, and we'll give a chance for you guys to win the actual draw for the shift buttons later in on the show. Those of you who are familiar, send a Facebook message to facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio. Get yourself entered into the draw. Those of you who haven't heard them, go to Facebook or go to ParadigmShiftCentral.com/buttons. Check those out. They are super awesome. I want to spend the whole episode telling you how awesome they are, but we'll put that aside for now, and we'll get into what this episode is about. So, Truth Seekah, as I mentioned, he is a conscious hip-hop artist, and we got some tracks of his that we'll be playing later in on the show. And there's not really so much that I can say that he can't say himself, so we're going to bring him on, and we're also going to bring on our good buddy Michael Brazel onto the show, and he's going to be joining us in this conversation. So, not so much as per usual with Paradigm Shift Radio, this isn't going to be like an interview per se, but it'll be a shared conversation. He's going to be co-hosting alongside with us. So in terms of the websites that you can check out his stuff at Truth Seekah, and the way how you spell that is truth, and then SEEKAH music.com. So truthseekahmusic.com, and you can also find him on Facebook, and he's got his profile and he's got his page, and his profile is again Truth Seekah 777 on Facebook. So yeah, I got some bonus numbers behind that, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that. So yeah, delving right into this. Thank you so much everybody for being here. Please invite your friends. We're getting into the thick of the conversation here, going further down the rabbit hole once again with Paradigm Shift Radio. Here we go. So Truth Seekah, if you're ready, bringing you onto Paradigm Shift Radio. Hello,
brother. How are you? Hey,
yo,
man.
Brother. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome, man. For sure, man. Now, like I said, you often do a radio podcast type thing on your end, so I mean you're pretty familiar with being behind the microphone in multiple ways. But please, for the people who may not know much about you, just introduce yourself and what it is that you would like to bring to the show tonight.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like I said, thanks for having me. I go by the name of Truth Seekah, and I do conscious, esoteric, spiritual hip-hop, and basically just speaking about my experiences, my life experiences, through spirituality, through religion, through esoteric understanding, and basically just taking all of my experiences in an artistic way, putting them together, making them sound as interesting as I can, and trying to make them sound as intricate and as simple as I can at the same time. So approaching it at a very artistic level, doing the music, and then taking it a step further, doing the videos. So a lot of people know me for my intrinsic videos that I put out with stunning visuals that try to tell the story behind the music. So it's like you get one part of the art by just listening to the music and just letting your consciousness take you where you want to go with the music, and then you can take it to the next level and see the visuals that I've actually put together, kind of tell the story behind the song and give you some visuals and some pictures and kind of tie some knots with that as well. So it's amazing stuff, man. A lot of people are taken to it, and we actually represent a movement of people all across the globe who are having this spiritual awakening, and they're all asking questions. So they come to podcasts like this and podcasts like mine, and it's a lot of people who are asking the same questions. And we understand that if you don't ask the questions, you'll never get the answers. So I've asked a lot of questions over my life, and I've got a lot of answers. And so I take a lot of that information and put it out there in the music, and a lot of people are resonating with it, man. So it's a very beautiful thing.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And I'm looking forward to being able to share some of your tracks a little bit later in the episode, as I mentioned. And I like what you said, really emphasizing that questions are where it's at. And that's actually kind of, I when I think of that, I think of Terence McKenna saying those exact same words. And just literally that's what we're going to be practicing here tonight. We're not just going to be trying to pin down one solid answer, because, I mean, who's to say? Right? But if we play around with the questions, that's where we start to ping around ideas, and even what's exciting, even for ourselves, is that there may be new ideas that are coming to the surface through ourselves having this conversation. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what we'll get out of this. And let me just bring on our buddy Michael, just so he's in on the conversation before we get rolling with this. And then we'll bounce back to you and start off with the topic of magic, what that means to you, your interpretation of it. And from there, we'll just continue to go forward, and we'll get into the conversation of aliens and, of course, more about the occult. But they all just weave into one another, so it'll be exciting to see where we go with it. So with that said, thank you again, Truth Seekah. And we're going to bring on our good buddy Michael Brazel, who, oh my goodness, everybody here has their own podcast these days, apparently. Michael has his own podcast. You guys can check that out at Soul Interaction Radio on Blog Talk, and he can share you the links with that. But Michael will bring you back onto the air, and so Michael Brazel, if you're ready, bring you back onto Paradigm Shift Radio.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey. How's it going?
Welcome back. Good,
I'm back.
Good. Cool. Well, Michael, is there anything that you just want to say real quick, or just?
Yeah, it's good to be here. I think that's about it.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, all right. So now that we're all here, and I will say for people listening to the show, we will be inviting people to call in later in on the episode. And again, with Paradigm Shift Radio, there is preparation that goes into this, but part of the preparation is being able to be prepared for the unexpected, if that makes sense. So I can't fully predict what's going to happen with this show, but we want you guys to be able to know that you're a part of it too. So if anybody's in the live chat and they have comments and questions, feel free to drop those into the live chat. I'll try to keep an eye on that, and we'll try and bring your comments into the show, and also we'll let you know when it's time to call into the show later, and probably in the second half. But for now, let's bring it back to Truth Seekah. So, I mean, in the topic of magic, I'll just sort of preface this because I think when even the way how we write magic can sort of influence what it is that we're talking about. And I'll just sort of clarify my own interpretation that magic, spelled M-A-G-I-C, is magic that sort of refers to like the stage showmanship of illusions and things that you see in Vegas with David Copperfield and such that may or may not actually be real. Whereas magic, spelled M-A-G-I-C-K with the K on the end, that's actually referring to a different interpretation of magic. And the coin itself is actually the term itself is actually coined by Aleister Crowley. And those of you may not be familiar with him, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. But he was very interested in just exploring all the different ways that we can manifest within this reality through the power of our thoughts. And magic in itself is, and from my simple interpretation, refers to the relationship between ourselves as creators within this holographic reality, this holographic matrix that is constantly just responding to the thoughts that we're putting out. So then it's this idea of understanding that everything is magic. So how aware are we of it, and what can we really do with it? So that's just sort of setting the stage there. But yeah, so just letting you know, we're not always going to be talking about David Copperfield stuff. This is going into different interpretations and layers of it. But yeah, putting it over to Truth Seekah, what do you think? How would you address the topic of what magic is?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways we can approach that topic. I think the very elementary way would be the phrase abracadabra, which basically means that I create it as I speak it. And that's the term that the magicians use when they would perform a magical ceremony, and is actually used in magic, M-A-G-I-C, after they would do a magic trick. They say abracadabra, and then this is the power word that they use, which means I create it as I speak it. So therefore, you're creating your own reality. You're bending the matter that's already here, the illusion, to get a certain outcome. And I think that's the basis of magic, and there's so many stems, there's so many streams from that, where it gets into a lot of different things with magic. There's different types of magic: white magic, black magic, and other shoots as well. But black, white, and gray. White magic is usually used to help people and for the betterment of the human race, and black magic is usually hexes and curses and things like trying to get what you want from people by bending their reality to suit your needs. So definitely don't want to promote anything negative. I've had my negative experiences with black magic and with witches and warlocks opening up different portals and doors to negative influences. And that's one thing about magic as well, and about your words in general, that you have the power of life and death literally in your tongue, that you can create as you speak. And so there's a lot of different streams for us to go down with magic. So that's, if I was to give a basic definition, that's what I would say.
For sure. And just passing it over to Michael, just adding on that.
Yeah, I'm having studied witchcraft for quite a long time and incorporating it into a lot of my practice. A definition I like is one that a teacher of mine gave. Her name's T. Thorne Coyle, and it's magic is the marriage of breath, will, and desire. When we learn to stand in power and we become more self-possessed, we are able then to manipulate the energies and forces around us by connecting to the energies and forces within us. And magic is ritual. Magic is the word. Magic is community. Magic is a lot of different things. And of course, we can divide it into different categories of magic. But I find like most practitioners are in that gray space, and even when we start going into black magic or white magic, we start looking at where it's all based on intention. So it's all the intention of the practitioner. When we start looking at how we connect to those various forces and how we're manipulating them to suit our needs, or to create justice in the world, or to create justice for ourselves. I think there's more shades of gray with magic than there are clear delineations between, the black and white side of things. So the type of magic that I've practiced is more in that gray space. And most of the stuff that I've done and the people I've worked with have been in that shadow space where it's not quite all in the light, but not quite all in the dark either. Because I think it gives you a more full encompassing ability to connect into who we are, because we're all various shades of, both good and bad. So that's my take on magic.
For sure. And just making sure that the talking stick's going around. Truth Seeker, if you just want to jump in on anything, feel free. So if you have any response on that.
Yeah. I just put out my first book, which is called The Testimony of an Ex-Witch, and I actually wrote it 9 years ago, and I just got it published this year. And with the title, I catch a lot of flack from witches, whenever they hear the title. And it's and I want to be clear that I'm not the end-all authority on what it means to be a witch or what it means to be an ex-witch or something like that. In the book, I'm talking about my experience dealing with mixing a lot of different, Wiccan practices, mixed with Crowley, mixed with Taoism, mixed with drug use, and a lot of destructive behavior. So whenever I got into magic as a teenager, it was very self-destructive. We did it for fun. We did it to try to commune with the other side, with at the same time living a very destructive lifestyle. I would, steal from people. We was in the gang involvement, just different things as a lost teenager, at the age of like 13 or whatever. And I got involved in some things that nobody wants to be involved with. I opened up some doors that I couldn't close, and I ended up, being harassed and by evil spirits, and opening up portals to the other side that I needed help, and so I called out to God, and then I called some churches, and I needed prayer. I needed somebody to talk to, because I was seeing elemental spirits. They were trying to speak to me in different languages, and I couldn't understand them, and it really was scaring me to death. I needed someone to talk to help me. I would try to tell my girlfriend at the time, and she couldn't even see, the stuff that I was seeing. And it's a very scary place to be. So if anybody, listening to this show, approach anything in the spirit realm, spirituality with caution, but at the same time with intrigue. That don't be scared, but definitely be careful, because there's a lot of different spirits and entities and things on the other side that wish to manifest themselves on this physical plane. And I was a case as a lost teenager that almost ended up in a psychiatric ward dealing with witchcraft and spirits. So as we explore these terms and these topics, I've since found healing and can talk about these subjects and can explore these subjects without the fear and the hysteria, and just approach the information for what it is, and be open to talk to other people regardless of belief or faith or whatever, or dogma. And so there's so many different aspects we're talking about. I want to talk about the dark side, which I'm referring to, and also the positive side, dealing with angels, dealing with spirit, receiving signs and messages that are leading us on our path, on this journey. The reason why we're on this podcast, the reason the people are tuned in right now listening, is for a reason. There's something that they're going to take away from this, from this phone call. And I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, just kind of imagining someone listening to this who may not really be familiar with some of these topics of conversation, I think it would be important for us to just be able to, like, in some way, I mean, I'm asking you guys, like, how do we make this so that people understand, like, the reality of the situation, so to speak? Because, I mean, what may be real for you, True Seekah, Derek, it may be incredibly hard for someone to sort of, like, understand that as a reality from where they are within this matrix, so to speak. So, I mean, like, when you just say, like, oh, yeah, like, ... possession, ... like, witchcraft, like, like, summoning demons and spirits and making contact with elementals and stuff like that. I mean, what can we do to sort of just help people understand, like, how real some of this is, but not in the sense of trying to make it sound as if it's, like, theatrical or anything, but just trying to, like, get a good, solid perception, or not even, maybe solid might not be the better word, but just getting a better perception of, like, what potentials exist within this reality. And I'd be curious, I'll pass this to you, Derek, and to Michael, but, like, I'm curious in terms of, like, what practical, like, whether you would refer to them as ceremonies or, like, summonings or anything, like, what stuff have you experienced from that you may just be comfortable sharing, or again, just going back to my original question of how do we sort of explain this to the layman?
I would start off by explaining it like this. There's different energies and frequencies that exist all around us, and we can't see them. There's a lot of people who are listening to this podcast, and they have Wi-Fi going on, and the Wi-Fi signals are being shot around them, and there's all types of infrared signals and things like that. Those energies and signals exist, but they can't see them. It's the same way with spirit. And also, when you think about microscopic organisms, you can go into a river or a creek or something like that and get some of the water out and put it under a microscope, and if you look at it, you'll see in the water all these microscopic beings, these little creatures that exist, and they're living, and they're thriving, and they have a purpose, and they have something that they're put here to do. And a lot of them actually live off of the energy and life of other organisms as well. So these real life creatures, you can actually, actually get a microscope and look at them. They exist, but you can't see them unless you have a trained eye, and the trained eye being a microscope. And in our case, when we're referring to spirit and we're talking about entities and spirits, the trained eye, which we use to see these or to communicate, is what many people have referred to as the third eye, having your eye trained. And you're able to see in the spirit realm, you're able to move, you're able to heal, and you're able to help people by, accessing different giftings and abilities and talents to see into the spirit realm and see into the spirit world. So that's, like I was saying, I tapped into it, and I was shot out in the middle of this, being a destructive person, and I was able to see all of this stuff going on, and it really scared the hell out of me. But in a very practical way, whether people believe in them or not, they're more real than our physical reality. And what's going on the other side affects what's going on, here in our physical plane.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Michael, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think those are good examples. There's so much going on around us that, we aren't aware of. It's like if you're having a conversation with someone and you're really into the conversation, you don't notice all the cars and things that are moving around you. And those things are happening in our reality. So we only give our attention to so much at any given time. And, there are, so many different ways to connect into those different frequencies, just like our TV sets, you tune it up and now you have 1,000 channels versus just having a few channels. We went from, modems, which were dial-up, now to high-speed internet and sat-link. So it's, as we connect into ourselves and as we start to evolve how we are connecting to, our spiritual work and our spiritual practices, we may open up to those other frequencies. The thing about magic specifically is that when we do things like ritual, and we are going into a place where we're entering trance states, we are at that moment, sometimes opening ourselves up to an upgrade. We may be going from, dial-up internet to high-speed internet, because the ritual is psychodramatic. It's affecting us on multiple levels. When we start bringing in the senses, when it becomes an ecstatic practice, we do open up our reality because we are now engaging ourselves fully in that moment. So it is important, and I think the thing I do appreciate about what Truth Seeker said was that we don't necessarily talk so much about protection work. A lot of people see these TV shows like American Horror Story, Coven, and all these new shows about witchcraft and things, and I think it's great that it isn't as in the broom closet anymore, and I think there is a lot of value to being able to connect into magic. But with anything, you have to go into a protected. Reiki attunements can kill you if you get too many of them at one time. Kundalini can kill you. So even the good stuff has a negative impact on you if it's abused or not used the correct way. And a lot of times many of us who come into it don't necessarily have that foundation of understanding that we have to come into it with layers. You want to have someone who can guide you into it. And it's not saying that you can't be a solitary practitioner or read books and learn, but at some point it requires us to connect into the greater community. And that's one thing that I do appreciate about the craft and people who work in the craft, is that there is such a reverence for community, and there is a higher reverence for connecting to the earth and to our spaces. So, with anything, approach with caution. Too much TV can make you lazy. Anything can have a negative impact on you, but it's about intention. Why do you want to learn these things, and what is your intention in going into it? And this is why I like the definition. It's the marriage of breath, will, and desire. What are you desiring, and where are you putting your will? Will shouldn't be force. It should be coming into your intention and directing your intention through action. Not using it to forcibly control or manipulate other people. And unfortunately there are people who will do that. But I found those to be in my dealings with the community, that tends to be a more narrow aspect of it.
For sure. Cool. So, again, there's a lot of different directions that we can take this in. For me personally, maybe Truth Seeker might have some information on this, but I'm really interested in some of the people who have been exploring the realms of magic for generations prior to ours. Because, even though we have the internet and even though this information is accessible, like the realms of magic or the idea that like spirits exist is nothing new. In fact, it's like the oldest thing there is, so to speak. I was sort of playing around with that idea that, the spirit realm has sort of like been the default reality, and this physical reality came out of it, meaning like we are a later version of what once was nothing but spirit, so to speak. So Truth Seeker, I'm curious, what information do you have in terms of like people within our ancient past, take it as far back as you feel you want to, who have worked with magic, and what different ways have they worked with magic, and how has it benefited them within their life adventures?
Yeah, on a very practical way, I am a Bible theologian. I've studied the biblical text for going on 14 years now, and a lot of the anomalies pop out to me. A lot of the spiritual practice in, the Bible is what I really got introduced to a disciplined practice through. And that's what I was going to say when we're talking about, trying to find a community. I know it helps a lot with the internet now. I didn't have the internet readily available to me when I was going through all this stuff. But to really find some type of discipline to help you, something that's going to move you and motivate you in a positive manner towards service to others over service to self. And that's the whole thing with intentions. So if we approach it with those intentions, I think we'll be safe. But, going back to the Bible, ever since the beginning, there was always, this talk about light and dark and these different entities and angels and things like that. And it was a very practical thing that they had. The ancient prophets in the Bible were stargazers. They were seers. They would fast for days on end, eat nothing but fruits and vegetables for days on end, and then have angelic encounter. Angels would appear to them, would bring them messages, and a lot of people, when we talk about the biblical text, definitely with it being so westernized now, with our whole understanding of Christianity or the Bible is so westernized right now, we understand that's an Eastern practice, that Christianity started as a spiritual practice in the East before it was a religion in the West. So when we're thinking about this, these are things that monks are doing, that mystics are doing now, going on fast and having angelic encounters, going out stargazing for hours and having angelic encounters. I mean, I've had them myself. And so if we approach this with some type of looking at a ancient text, and it would be one thing that if it was just for the biblical text and, just privy to the Bible and these are their experiences, but it's not. All the other holy books talk about the same exact thing. Fasting and praying for days, for hours, going into and on top of caves and mountains and being met by angelic figures and enlightenment, and having ecstatic trances and things like this. So we see it, documented within the holy books, and then we also see it within the indigenous people, the Native American Indians who were really big into, going into trances and communing with spirit and being one with nature. So we have a great cloud of witnesses before us, and it's almost like you can pick what stream that you want to go down because there's so many examples in each one.
Yeah. Michael, if there's anything you want to say.
Yeah, I mean, magic it's all around us, in the ancient pagan traditions, worshiping the earth, using ritual to, celebrate the seasons, for good harvest, for community. So it goes way back. I mean, we can track back these types of rituals and celebrations of the earth for, quite a ways back. But even, more recently, you look at people like the Theosophists and these folks who were engaging ceremonial magic and high magic. And if you read some of their stuff, a lot of stuff they talk about, Alice Bailey and Blavatsky and even Crowley, they're talking about quantum physics. They're talking about stuff that now we have different labels for. So I think the beautiful thing about magic and exploring magic and what these foundation layers have done is they've opened us up to thinking about reality differently. And when we are able to think about reality differently, then we are able to expand consciousness. Because now we're asking questions, and we may not always get the answers, but it gives us now a framework to ask the questions. And the beautiful thing about magic is we can do ritual. We can do ritual fasting. We can do different things to help move our physical selves into communion with those unseen forces. So, doing fasting is one of the best things. But even like yoga, in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali talks about the different cities that you can open up to when you start doing yoga in a very ritualistic way. You start engaging the magical side of yoga. So there's, all these like old practices, and when you do dig down into those sacred books, you really do see that there's encoding in there that tells you how to do all these very mystical things. Even reading the Bible, hoodoo and conjure work, they use the Bible as their basis for their magical practice. So, there is value in going to these texts, even if you're not necessarily committed to becoming a Christian, becoming a Buddhist. There is still some beautiful stuff in these books, and we should dig down deep and look at what we can learn about ourselves from seeking through.
Yeah, I think one thing that's sort of the path of Magick really that I'm attracted to is the idea that it focuses more on experience. So, I mean, with a lot of things where people are like exploring all these different spiritual outlets and stuff, a lot of it is information, and you start understanding new things. It's just like, yes, like I've unlocked the upgrade to understand sacred geometry and infinity. Like, yes, like, like achievement unlocked. And then you like understand like other things just about like diet or health or, like yoga postures and stuff. But I mean, then when as you get more into it, what you really want to work towards is the experiences, and I think that's where something like practical magic is something that will do that will grant you the ability to have these experiences. And that's where, like, I mean, for me, I always draw back to the practice of like lucid dreaming and everything, which a lot of people would say is still within the umbrella of magic in that sense. I mean, when you're getting into the actual ritual and the practice of it, but just putting it over to Truth Seekah, what practical magic might you be able to put forth towards the audience? I mean, something as simple as using a journal, which often gets repeated here time and time again, is something that I put forward, but it's more so not even just the idea of using a journal, but understanding how the journal is actually creating within this reality through the simple act of writing things down and using the language of symbols to create within this reality. I mean, I'm super fascinated with the topic of how symbols work within this reality, because then you think back to things like Merlin and that lore of magic in itself. But yeah, sorry, Truth Seekah, anything that you just want to share in terms of what I just said?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, very practical things that people can do, and we hear this all the time, but spending time in meditation, that should be a 101, that should be a no-brainer, but as you have these experiences and you go into meditation, you'll soon find that there's so much, so many other things that come into your day and try to consume your time, that try to choke, these spiritual practices out. But spending time in prayer, when I say prayer, I'm just talking about thanksgiving, speaking to Spirit, speaking to God, entering in with a heart of gratitude and thanksgiving. And what I do is I basically try to clear my mind of everything. I may listen to some type of, binaural beats or some tones or some short guided meditation, something really short just to get me in tune with Spirit, and I'll get everything out of my mind until I'm just focusing on nothing. Well, I'm not thinking about my, podcasts or video games or work or the bills or the washing machine. Just quiet down your mind, put the intention out of what you want to do, and mine's, trying to connect with my higher self or with my guardian angels. And, there's no telling what's going to happen. There is no formula that, okay, once you've reached this point, then blah, blah, blah is going to happen. It's different every time. It's usually amazing every time, whether it's self-reflection, self-realization, or if it's meeting angelic beings. Like, all this and more is possible. Astral travel, all this stuff. Simply quieting your mind and doing what the scripture says in the book of Luke, that the kingdom of heaven is within. And the whole thing about this is to find peace with yourself and to understand that the world is trying to sell you all types of things. They're trying to sell you claiming that they have the exclusive truth and they have the answer, and you have to join them and come under them and pay so much money to get the truth or to find fulfillment, whether it's in drugs, lust, alcohol, these things to fulfill you, which you need nothing to fulfill you. Everything you have is already within yourself. So all you have to do is close down, go within, and the universe opens up. And that's what, whenever we opened this show, we were talking about just asking questions and not trying to teach you something, but, trying to learn ourselves. And what you'll find freedom in is what I like to call giving up your right to be right. Like, I have nothing to prove. I'm giving you my experiences, what works for me. If it sounds interesting, if you can take from it, you can try it and see if it works for you. I have nothing to gain or lose, but to simply give up your right to own the key or to own the formula, because I think a lot of us, whether we're dealing with a religion or sect or anything like that, many of us are talking about the same exact thing. We're talking about spirit, but we have different perception and we're calling it many different things. So once you give up your right to be right and your right to teach and just simply come and learn, the universe opens up, man, and it becomes way more interesting. And the thing that you find that you lose is ego, and you lose all hidden agenda. You lose all the hidden agenda. That, hey, I really don't want your money. I don't want you to follow me or whatever. I'm simply here to share, and like I say on my podcast, that we all come together, we all have a piece of the puzzle, and we put our pieces together and see if it fits and makes a picture. So all that being said, spend time, meditate. Everything that you're looking for is within.
For sure. And I just got to say, as we continue the conversation here, we're less than an hour left in the show, but definitely going to make the most of it and still got to hit upon a couple other topics. But Michael, just passing it back to you, and we'll sort of segue the topic of conversation, but any other practical magical tips that you might be able to give to people?
Yeah, the big thing with magic is that it's very experiential. I love the fact that we can do something with the spirituality that we're connecting into. We start looking at sacred geometry, for instance, and it's hard to understand, well, how does sacred geometry apply to what I'm doing? But if I'm laying out a crystal grid, like on my floor, in a very specific symbol or mandala, I can use that now to cast my circle or to be empowered by that mandala. Journaling is something that I speak about all the time. So journaling is an absolute powerful way to connect into not only magic, but into your lives, because our lives are magical. I find spending time in silence is a great way to commune with divinity, to connect into God herself, and to sit with that energy. In silence lets us listen. It makes us receptive. And I think that's an important part of doing prayer work. For me, my yoga practice is my magical practice. I move through my body, but I also sit in silence so I can be receptive to what's coming through. It's hard for us to sit in silence. A lot of times we feel we have to fill up that noise. It's hard for couples to sit together without someone having to do something, and I think we get to gestate when we're in silence. We get to see who we truly are at our core. And for me, magic is about self-possession. It's about coming into full alignment with my own soul, and for me to understand who I am within the framework of my life. So when we are able to do that, we are able to move with greater intent in this physical world. So that way our lives become an action of prayer versus, we have these great collections of things. I have all these things I love, like yoga and synchronicity and all this other stuff, but how am I applying that to my life? It's great to have knowledge, but it's also powerful to apply that knowledge to your personal experience when you move forward through life.
Yeah, one idea that I always bring back to, and even just bouncing off what Truth Seekah was saying earlier, I think a big role, a big duty of what we have within this reality is to remove the dust is to remove the dust from the lens of our heart. And what I mean by that is to become like a better receiver for higher consciousness, so to speak. Because as we do that, that is where we will begin to like walk through our life with more grace and less difficulty, so to speak. Not that there won't be challenges, but we'll be able to approach the challenges with a new attitude, in the sense that we'll be able to see each challenge as an opportunity for us to grow into more of ourselves. And that's where, like, just going back a little bit in terms of the magic, I really love the use of the symbols and the sigils. Sigils is kind of the term used to refer to like magical symbols. And Michael, no worries, he just sent me a message. Michael's got to step off for a little bit, but that's okay. We'll still be able to manage either way. But what I was going to ask, just passing it back over to Truth Seekah, and then we'll play an audio track, one of the songs after this. But within your artwork, within some of the imagery that you use within your album art and stuff, you have the symbol there for alchemy, and that's like the symbol, like with like the circle. It's actually like within the promo image for this episode, but you see it's like the circle with the triangle with the square with another circle inside of it. Truth Seekah, I'm just wondering if there's any information like about that symbol in specific, and like why you choose it, and how you feel that sort of relates to magic and the internal alchemy that this process is all about.
Yeah, the name of my latest album is Spiritual Alchemy. So it's basically, alchemy is, transforming base metals into gold, taking, these different metals and transforming them into gold. And so spiritual alchemy is to take, all the experiences that you've been through, the place that you started out, the experience that you have, and to transform into, the next state, and to basically have just like a spiritual transformation. So we start out at one state and we move to the next. And so it's, the symbol for alchemy is a powerful symbol. It invokes thought, and symbols in general invoke thought, and not every symbol has a set meaning. So when I may invoke a symbol or use a symbol, it's to play with the consciousness of the person. I use a lot of symbols that seem taboo to some people, obviously like the all-seeing eye, things like that, and the majority of people, when they see that, they maybe think it's the eye of Lucifer or the devil or something like that, because of Jay-Z and how this Illuminati term has infiltrated pop culture. But understanding symbols is that, first of all, symbols have no power whatsoever except the power that we give to it, whatever thoughts and ideas that we attach to that symbol. So when we see it, it actually invokes a feeling within us, much like when a Christian sees a cross. They think of Christ, they think of, the atonement for sins and things like that, and it makes them feel good. Well, there's other people who will view that same cross and they'll be offended. There's other people who will view that cross, and that cross represents torment and torture and the pillaging of a people. So it's the same way, when we use the all-seeing eye, that symbol itself is the all-seeing eye of God, all-seeing, all-knowing eye of God. And I always talk about going to the reservations in Oklahoma, to the Indians up there, the Cherokee, and going through their historic monuments and stuff, and seeing all the symbolism, and they actually use the eye as well as the all-seeing eye of God. So many cultures, many people use that symbol as the all-seeing, all-knowing eye of God. Was also used in early Christendom as well, for the all-seeing eye of God, mentioned of in the Bible, actually, in Psalm chapter 33, talks about the eye of the Lord watching over thee. And so symbols in themselves have no power, but they definitely invoke thought, intrigue, fear, hysteria, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So they could be powerful, and they definitely turn a lot of people away at first glance, but we try to break down those walls, those misconceptions. That's a big part of what I do.
For sure. Yeah. Like the symbols thing for me is such a huge key within this discussion of magic and just being able to understand how this reality works. And I've talked about it in the past on previous episodes, but I'll just try explaining it again in a different way. And for me, like just expanding upon what Truth Seekah was saying, like the symbol itself is neutral, but the potential of the symbol is what it evokes within us, and then our reaction to it is what gets sent out into reality, so to speak. So I mean, you could say that like through people seeing a symbol, it sort of triggers, it runs a program within their conscious thought, or has the potential to evoke an emotion, which actually like sends that ripple out into reality. And that's where like we can use our language as symbols itself. And that's where, going back to this idea of journaling, when you write stuff down in your book and you attach the words with meaning, or even if you're playing around where you're taking a short phrase and condensing it, removing the vowels into a string of consonants, and then turning those consonants into a symbol of some sort, you can create a sigil. You can create a sigil with intent behind it. And then you can create an intent that says like, I will pass my exam, or, I will get a job in the future. And you create a symbol that works for you. And then the purpose behind using this is that you have it somewhere where it's accessible, and then you look at it every now and then it will help evoke that that reinforcement of that reality that you are trying to align with, and understanding that reality already exists. But then through seeing the symbol, it's like you just sort of like reconnecting with whatever path it is that you're choosing to connect with. So like Truth Seekah was saying, like people in a moment where they might be distraught, and then they can like connect with their cross, and it really brings them back to a place of center. I mean, that's sort of an example that a lot of people can relate to. And then even just to expand on that, a lot of you who are familiar with paradigm shift and everything, that there's a sigil associated with the whole project. So I mean, in the promo image for this, like just right above that where you see the paradigm shift logo, like that in itself is a sigil that is meant to evoke many things. And I always ask people what it evokes within them out of curiosity. But among many things, I put forth the intention of it evoking the sense of community and direction and a portal and alignment and strength and unity and all sorts of awesome stuff. But again, magic is something that it's in addition to like the act of practicing it, more so than anything, it's the idea of understanding the fundamentals of it, and understanding like how it is constantly just this reinforcement of the understanding that our thoughts are creating this reality, and then working alongside things such as symbols to help manifest this reality with more ease and more expediency, or not expediency in the sense of rushing, but more efficiency in that sense. So I mean, you can start to actually, that's where you get the idea of white magic and black magic, as Truth Seekah was saying, where you can start to use this understanding to like manifest things as you choose with your free will, and obviously to check in and to try and do it in a benevolent sense, so that you can like help accelerate the entire collective evolution that we're doing here together as we all become better magicians within this reality. So magic is a super awesome topic, and I'll pass over to Truth Seekah just to sort of like wrap up on the magic topic, and then we're going to play one of his tracks. So Truth Seekah, is there anything else that you just sort of want to remind people of in terms of the magic?
Yeah, I mean, abracadabra, as you speak it, you create it. So, and that's, because life and death is in the power of the tongue. So watch the words that you use, and don't let evil, come out of your mouth. Speak blessings and not curses, bless people instead of curse them. For, even then you have the power to shape their reality as well. It's very powerful, the word, spoken word.
For sure. Right on, and that's a good segue into the spoken word that you have turned into awesome music. And now, just talking to you directly, we got some tracks that we can choose from. We have Flight of the Navigator, Meditation, Mystic Mind, or Wingardium Leviosa. Which of those would you like to play for the audience?
We're talking about magic right now, since it's a segue from magic. Let's go to Wingardium Leviosa. And I'll think that right, real quick.
Yeah.
I haven't, wrote any songs about my family, my wife, or my daughter, or anything, but they're really big Harry Potter fans, and I wanted to, kind of give them a shout out in the midst of the song. So, with that title, Wingardium Leviosa is actually a spell within the Harry Potter series. And the spell is a spell of levitation. They take their wands and they say the spell, and they're able to make things levitate. They use it to make feathers levitate and broomsticks and things like that. So I took that, and it's a levitation spell. So that's what that song is about. The song is about levitation, but not on a physical, spell like that, but more of the spiritual side of levitating, of elevating in the spirit from one level to the next, and taking all of the baggage, all of the junk, and using it as a step to get to the next level and levitate to a higher place. So that's what the song is about, man.
Right on, man. So again, for everybody looking to check out and connect with True Seekah, again, check out truthseekahmusic.com, and also the Facebook page, which you can find through the main website, but it's facebook.com/truthseekah, and again, that's SEEKAH, and lots of content available through his YouTube channel, which you can also find links through there. So in the meantime, we're going to do that, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about some aliens and some UFOs. And today's actually the anniversary of the Roswell crash, which is a nice coincidence in terms of talking about UFOs, and we'll continue the conversation there. So this is Wingardium Leviosa by Truth Seekah here on Paradigm Shift Radio. Enjoy and stay tuned.
4 brainwave states. Beta is the conscious mind. Alpha is the creative and meditative mind. Theta is the dreaming mind, and delta is where the higher self is.
Elevate your mind until you're taken to another place. If you seek, you'll find, and then levitate to a higher state. Move past the negativity and let's erase the hate. Embracing whatever will come along as fade away.
Transcendental meditation. I'm sat in a temple trying to reach man's potential, practicing the active mental elevation. Black candles emanating a white light, mind sight. Vision in the prism as I'm writing, my eyes are wide open. I close and my focus on the inner being. Sit and listen to the voice of the spirit reasoning, exercising the inner demons, transcending the spiritual pain, battling negative energy, standing on the physical plane, cleansing my aura, astral traveling the ethereal train, channeling the mystical phoenix has risen, living again, distinguishing the flames of a burning desire, circle of fire, singing hymns but not the kind for your church choir. See, I work for a higher force, inspired by the Lord, like Elijah formed in the sky. I was born in the eye of the storm, born to the false messiah, and the real definitely no liars. The truth lies inside a seeking, you'll find her.
Elevate your mind until you're taken to another place. If you seek, you'll find, and then levitate to a higher state. Move past the negativity and let's erase the hate. Embracing whatever will come along as fate awaits. Elevate your mind until you're taken to another place. If you seek, you'll find, and then levitate to a higher state. Move past the negativity and let's erase the hate. Embracing whatever will come along as fate awaits. Never let you keep me here in this prison that you built for me. Let it be known that I do not fear, and I won't back down so gracefully. I'm not what they say I am, but a figment of your imagination. Your dogma, your karma, just a product of intoleration. On a search for salvation, your soul's vacant within a facade. So face it, your hatred held sacred is why you believe the lie. The choices that you've made have brought you here to question God. In the darkness, you can't see the light that shines right by your side. Excommunicated, now my only friends are spirits. Speak to me when I'm lonely and understand the way that I'm feeling. My sanity say I'm losing, I swear to God the stars are moving. The truth is hidden in plain sight and revealed within the movies. Maybe this sounds foolish, it's cruel, it's the way you do this to demonize human beings and pray that they come through ruins. It's true and it's my desire that fire will burn away your fear. So know that God is loving, there's a reason that it brought you here. Elevate your mind until you're taken to another place. If you seek, you'll find, and then levitate to a higher state. Move past the negativity and let's erase the hate. Embracing whatever will come along as fate awaits. Elevate your mind until you're taken to another place. If you seek, you'll find, and then levitate to a higher state. Move past the negativity and let's erase the hate. Embracing whatever will come along as fate awaits.
Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all those who live without love.
But you know, happiness can be found even in the darkest of times. One only remembers to turn on the light.
Elevate your mind until you're taken to another place. If you seek, you'll find, and then levitate to a higher state. Move past the negativity and let's erase the hate. Embracing whatever whatever will come along as fate awaits. Elevate your mind until you're taken to another place. If you seek your finding, then levitate to a higher state. Move past the negativity and let's erase the hate. Embracing whatever will come along as fate awaits.
Is this all real? Or is it just happening inside my head?
Of course it's happening inside your head, Harry. Why should that mean that it's not real?
All right, so there you go. Awesome stuff. That's Wingardium Leviosa by True Seekah. And I think that was great. Nice little inserts there from Harry Potter. Got some nice sound clips. And really, really hitting upon some main themes that you're right, even if it's just in your head, why does that make it any less real? Which I think is a big lesson within this reality to be reminded of, is that there's so many levels that reality exists upon, and this waking reality is just one version of it. So lots of stuff to explore, and we're going to bring True Seekah back on. So True Seekah, if you're ready, got you back on. Welcome back. There you go. Right on, man. So that was awesome. I've heard that track quite a few times previously, and I really like what you're doing, and I like the fact that it's tapping in to sort of like the mainstream culture representation of wizards and stuff. Because I mean, for me, not to sort of segue this too far off, but I'm super interested in the idea that through our media, through our mainstream movies, and even through our books and our novels, they're not just like authors individually creating a piece of art, but rather they themselves are like the branches of the God mind doing what it can to help wake itself up, whether or not they're even fully super conscious of it. So I mean, it's without a doubt that these themes of wizards and manifesting reality and willpower are coming up through our children's stories, and I think it's really cool when we can sort of perceive it with that open mind. But anything else you just want to say now that people have heard that song?
Yeah, no, well, just on the whole movie thing, I mean, that's a show in itself. And how, if the people, I mean, I've often thought of it as, are the people consciously aware of the information that they're sharing, or do they think that they're making it up? Or what is the reality? Is it the God mind, and it's just a natural thing that's happening, very natural without being planned by these producers and things. But so I do think there's a lot of thought that definitely goes into it. And movies, entertainment, media, all has the power to shift the consciousness of the people. That's one reason why why I do music. It's a powerful tool. But it is amazing to see. I've heard people demonize, Hollywood in that sense, being against it. But I use a lot of movie clips in my songs and things like that. And once you're, there's a quote by Yogi that says, once you're able to, it says, if you can't see God in all, then you can't see God at all. And we're talking about synchronicities, and we're talking about, looking for these signs and following them. And there's a lot of signs in these movies, man, whether it's, Star Wars or The Matrix, and even little B-side movies that, you wasn't going into looking for signs, and they're just everywhere. So God speaks to every medium, and Hollywood is definitely one of them. There's some amazing, movies and artwork and people who are involved in that vein. So I always say it makes things a lot more interesting,
Definitely. I agree. I think that will be a future episode, is just spending some time and looking at some of the synchromysticism within Hollywood films. And there's a lot there. I agree. But just kind of setting this up for more of the conversation that we got planned for this episode, moving towards the topic of aliens, but also like segueing this through aliens, from Magick into aliens, and also just tying this in. Let's just like bring in any aspects of the occult within this. And obviously we can't talk about the entire occult. That could take a while, but I mean, just some of the main themes and what does occult even mean. But we mentioned earlier, when you're talking about opening up to the energies around us, where interpretations from our past would sort of refer to these encounters as perhaps encounters with like angelic beings or even demons and stuff like that. And a lot of people can draw very interesting similarities between accounts that we have, even such as you mentioned within the Bible, that are very similar to alien encounters that we hear about or are sort of represented through mainstream culture and modern interpretations of it. But just passing this over to you, what is there about the theme and the topic of aliens that you would like to bring to the surface for the people listening to this?
Yeah, well, whenever we're talking about the Bible, when we're talking about angels and things like that, it's my understanding through the study of ancient texts, through breaking down the Hebrew words of the Bible, and also through practical experience. It's not just a head knowledge, which is all fun and good, but when you take that knowledge and you apply it, like we've been talking about, and then you start getting results that way, that's when things start getting a little bit more interesting. So understanding the Bible, when it talks about heaven, the same word that is used for heaven is the same word that is used for sky. So when the Bible talks about a prophet who says, I looked into the sky, or I looked into heaven, and behold, I saw an angel, or I saw angels ascending and descending. So heaven is not according to the Bible, it's not an imaginary place that we immediately translate to when we die. Heaven is a very physical place. And throughout the Bible, throughout the book of Enoch, other ancient texts, these angels traveled from heaven to earth. And they actually have a journey that they go. They travel back and forth from heaven to earth. And they, like I said, they have a journey. And there's different books in the Bible that actually speak about it as well. And so when we're talking about the occult and we're talking about magic and we're talking about meditation and things like this, I want to say first off, the word occult simply means hidden. That's all it means. So we actually use that term pretty loosely, but that's all it means, is that which is hidden. So to alleviate some of the fear, people need to understand that what is hidden to some is openly shown to others, and that if you ask and you seek and you knock, the doors will be opened and you will get the answers. So when we go out into an open sky, when we spend time stargazing, praying in the open heaven, we see visions much like the ancient prophets. And we see UFOs is what a lot of people call them, but they're actually angels traveling back and forth from heaven to earth, or traveling around the ether, traveling back and forth. And many people catch it on camera and things like that, and you can watch a lot of videos on YouTube. So when we're talking about angels, when we're talking about aliens, I think we're actually talking about the same thing. So in my experiences, through stargazing, through meditation, through encountering angelic beings, some people would call them aliens, some people would call them angels, some people would call them, seraphim or cherubim, things like that. They have different names, but it's a very magical experience, one that can be achieved. I would believe by anybody. I don't think that I'm special. There's other people like me as well who have had these experiences, and I think once we've been talking about intention, that once you just put the thought out there, and then you go out there with an open heart and an open mind, that things begin to open up, and it's a very practical thing that you can do during stargazing and making contact with the angelic or with aliens. So I think it really just depends on how you want to word it, because we're talking the same thing.
Yeah, I think that really does just sort of paint a different picture on the topic of aliens. A lot of people, I think if they're looking at it through the lens of mainstream culture, then they're sort of stuck within this box that aliens are material beings that have, that are from another planet. Whereas I don't think that they are sort of seeing it from like the multi-dimensional or the hyper-dimensional reality-ness that reality actually already is. And I agree that I think I use the term quasi-dimensional entities sometimes to sort of explain it, and this sort of refers to entities on multiple levels. So I mean, even what you were talking about, in terms of the magic conversation, when you can get into trances and communicate with like spirits and angels and stuff, those would also be quasi-dimensional entities. And quasi just sort of means like sort of here and there at the same time, and dimension obviously being, like the different variations of dimensions that this reality exists within. And like that's a super amazing thing to think about, is that in that idea, I just love playing around with the idea that like right now we have our filters on specifically so that we can't see the gnome that's like sitting behind us in the corner or something like that, even though there actually may be like some little quasi-dimensional entity that is actually there and is actually within our presence right now. But then like sometimes, whether it's from their conscious end of things or it's us sort of meeting them halfway, we sort of meet in this space where we can actually experience and be on the same level momentarily. And I think it's really interesting, just like how the topic of aliens sort of opens up, and even just tying in with the idea that, again, like the UFOs, one interpretation of the UFOs is to understand that the UFOs aren't like these physical ships, but they're actually like the craft is actually like an entity or an intelligence in itself. And that's where you get into the idea of like the Merkaba and like the activated Merkaba and the star tetrahedron actually being like the hyperdimensional spaceship that is traveling them through dimensions. As crazy as that sounds, but I'm sure you could probably explain some of that if you wanted to explain like the idea of UFOs actually being Merkabas and ascended masters and stuff. It's super interesting.
Oh yeah, well there's there's a lot of accounts if we go back to the Bible. And also the book of Enoch as well. In the Bible, it's quoted in the book of Psalms, and this kind of gives you a picture. It says that when it's talking about angels, it says that the Lord maketh his ministers spirits, his angels, as a flame of fire. And it's also quoted again in the New Testament that the Lord maketh his ministering spirits, his angels, as a flame of fire. And to understand that, we look at the term what a seraphim is that's mentioned of in the Bible. When you break down the Hebrew word, it means the burning ones or the fiery ones. So this is talking about fire. So also when we go into the book of Enoch, it actually tells you that these angels appear as fire when they're in heaven, and they have different colors and different shapes and things like that. And not all of them are fire, but it actually says that they are as a flame of fire, and they're able to take on the appearance of men when they come to Earth, when they have a message or they need to interact with mankind. So this is the angels, and like I said, you can actually look up in the sky. And then you can actually see them. You have to, spend a lot of time out there and actually have a trained eye. But I think if you spend enough time out there, you will eventually see them. There's also different YouTube channels with some people who have some really amazing, footage of some stuff that they've caught. But not only are we just talking about angels being out there, there's also what is known as principalities and powers, these different spirits who rule over certain parts of the world or of the universe, for that matter. And they're known by different names as well, but, the Bible calls them principalities and powers. And understanding spirits and what we like to, use the term vibration. And a vibration is basically like a thought pattern or a feeling that you get, and the whole room or the whole atmosphere can change to a spirit being present. And there's instances in the Holy Bible where God is he's like going to deal with a nation, and so all these spirits actually present themselves before God, and they are having this conversation, and they're presenting scenarios before God. They're saying, hey, let me go down and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all the people. And then another one will object and say, let me go down and be a confusion spirit. Let me confuse the people. So these are these spirits who come down and dwell amongst the people and change the vibration or change the very atmosphere of a nation. You know, not just a small group of people, but of a whole nation. So there's a lot of so this would set the groundwork for a lot of theories, and we talk to people who have seen, you know, different entities or whatever. So just because I'm using biblical terms, it's not, you know, set to biblical terms. Obviously, people have different names for them, whether it's the archons or some people would say fallen angels or something like that. So there's, you know, different terminologies that people use, but we're talking about the same thing. So it's very interesting, and you know, it is in operation now. As we're moving towards, you know, the New Testament in the Bible, it actually tells you how to deal with these spirits and the spirits that try to deal with people on a very small level, on a personal level, the spirits that try to interact with you and make themselves known through your life and through your emotions and thought patterns and things like that. And how these spirits are like parasites that want to leech on to you, and almost like a psychic vampire, and live off of the life that you resonate at, and change your energy so that they can have life. It's very interesting. There's a lot to it, and for each one of these paths, there's so many streams that we can go down to that actually have a lot of information. And like I said, I don't, you know, I try to erase the dogma. I run into a lot of trouble with that, though, when we try to erase the dogma. But I'm very in tune with, you know, what is known as comparative theology. So that's why it's like, okay, this, you know, just because I'm using these phrases doesn't mean this is the end-all phrase and this is what they're called, because, you know, you're going to call it something else, I'm going to call it something else, but we're talking about the same exact thing, and you know, the same principles still apply, though. Yeah, for sure, man. And I will say, like, I really do appreciate that you possess the knowledge that you have coming from, you mentioned, like, your background within, like, Christian and, like, Catholicism. I mean, for me too, like, I grew up Catholic and stuff like that, and though, like, it's not something that I still, like, maintain as part of, like, my identity, so to speak, it doesn't mean that it's, like, not something that I think has any less value in terms of interpreting this picture through the metaphors and the language that they use within the Bible. So I'm really glad that you have done the research that you've done on your end to say that, you know, like, hey, like, you know, like, drop the stigmas. Like, the stuff in the Bible is language that is trying to point us towards the direction of something a little bit bigger than us. And if we can see it in that way instead of just, like, getting caught up, because I mean, it's weird, you know, like, if someone were to just, like, tune in on this at the wrong time and they just hear you, like, talking about God and talking about, like, Luke 17. It's weird because, like, for anybody listening to this, like, check in with yourself, even if you just sort of, like, notice that, like, a part of you is just like, oh, you know, like, oh, here comes another Christian guy or something, right? Like, that's some weird ego virus in ourselves. So I'm glad. Yeah, thanks again. I was just gonna. It's gotta work both ways. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was just going to say we only got 20 minutes left in the show, and I know there's still a lot to talk about, and we will be able to do an after-party hangout for those of you who are looking to get involved with that. And of course, we'll have the link up for that through facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio. And just taking this moment here to put in a final reminder for anybody looking to get access to the draw for the shift buttons, send the message to facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio, and of course, order yours for yourself at ParadigmShiftCentral.com/buttons. Haven't sent out too many orders in the last little week, just been a little busy and stuff on my end, but looking forward to getting some more out there and for you guys to be able to use those as your super tools to be able to hack the Matrix and get people synced up with the main website, and also this very episode and this conversation to be a part of the community and all that good stuff. And of course, encouraging people to become monthly supporters for Paradigm Shift Radio to help support the evolution of free conscious media through this project, and awesome stuff. And of course, checking out True Seekah's website as well, already mentioned, and links included in the show notes as well. Now, just going on with the topic of angels and aliens and stuff like that, I'm super
super interested in this because I think it's really interesting when you sort of step back and look at like this bigger illusion of things and sort of say that, you know, like play God for a second, and you get this idea of like, all right, okay, like everybody's here, everybody's standing in front of me. Now, you group of people here, like you group of souls, you go down to Earth and do what you got to do, and we're going to sprinkle you with this fairy dust that's going to make you forget that I sent you there. And then you're also going to forget that we also have this other group of people who are going to be invisible to you, but are still going to be part of the game, and who are still going to be able to influence the play, and are still going to be able to help you along the way. But as far as you know, it will be just you alone. And then you other group, the angels, the aliens, like your job is to help guide them and steer them in a direction, and also to be able to help test them in order to help them grow in ways that they may not normally be able to grow if they themselves were doing it with like 100% open eye awareness. So we have to go through that dark night of the soul, that amnesia, to be able to grow in these awesome, amazing ways. But again, I think it's just really interesting to sort of look at the idea of like even the interpretation of aliens and stuff, like they themselves are like continuations of the God mind, just in different forms, that are still a part of this collective awakening process. So I mean, I think even when you just look at aliens and stuff, because I think we touched upon the idea that like some of them are like quasi-dimensional entities, I think there are still the idea that some would still be like physical, more material beings, but again, like that's a whole topic in itself. But more so than anything, when you look at what it is that they're accomplishing, and rather than trying to crack the case as to what UFOs are and what aliens are, rather look at the result that they are causing within society. And in a lot of ways, the very simple way of looking at it is the idea that when a person sees a UFO, it gives them the opportunity to ask outside the box, to ask their own questions, and to be like, hey, like what was that? Like this isn't something that I've been taught about like through mainstream culture, and this isn't within my regular paradigm of science. There must be something more, ... And then so the purpose of aliens and UFOs are literally there to help like shake us up a bit, and to sort of help trigger us, and sort of to help us be like, you know, just being like, hey, you know, like don't forget, like, you know, there's more going on here and sort of stuff. But yeah, so with only just 15 minutes left in the show, give or take, just sort of segueing this towards the topic of the occult. And I'll apologize ahead of time because we may not be able to bring too many callers on, and we'll be able to bring on our friend Michael back on in the last few minutes, and we'll do a button draw in the last few minutes as well. But yeah, just Truth Seekah, what else did you want to hit upon in terms of if there's anything else with the aliens, and also just like themes of the occult? I know you touched upon it earlier, but like just anything, and any particular teachings, occult teachings that you have noticed have been rising to the surface, perhaps.
I mean, I could just really talk about the the information that comes through the through the contact, through the stargazing, through the meditation is usually positive. It's usually that you need to meditate more and eat better. I mean, that's my personal messages that I get. It should be a no-brainer, but it's something that's really had a grip on me my whole life, is treating food as something for comfort. So when I would go into meditation, I would really get the sense of to take care of your body as your temple, and to spend time and reading and meditation and in stargazing, make this a practice, because there's so much power to that when you're able to kind of reset and just kind of connect back with source, and it's pretty positive. So, and it's kind of like what you were saying about where people it kind of stirs up a sense of awe and wonder in you. I have talked to different religious friends, and when we talk about aliens or the existence of life outside of Earth, for some reason they say they get a sense of doubt for I don't think a doubt of God, but a doubt of their religion, because they were told that something was true their whole life, and if they question it or find out that it's flawed, then they kind of lose all hope in it. But me personally, it was like what you were saying. It's kind of like a magical thing. It lets me know that, hey, this belief in God, this belief in the spirit realm, it's not a theory anymore. That, hey, there is something going on. that there is something that's traveling back and forth from heaven to earth, that it's not just an idea or a book that we're reading, but no, this is some stuff that's literally happening. It's going on. You can see it, and you can make contact with it. And it's not just a theory. Hey, do you know God in your heart? No, it's not anymore like do you have faith in God? Do you believe in God? It's like, no, I know God now. I know the divine. I know angels. I know spirits, that they exist. I've dealt with them. I've fought with them. I've battled with them. I've worked with them. So it exists on so many levels now that it's not just possessing faith anymore. It's moving from faith to knowing. And there's
right, yeah, and again, going back to that idea of just like finding value within the experiences. It's true. You can't just live your life inside of a book. Eventually, you got I love the idea that a lot of people say, like, like seeing is believing, but rather you can flip that on its head and you look at it as the idea that believing is seeing. So, like people say, like, well, I've never seen UFOs and aliens up in the sky. Well, maybe that's because, like, you're not on the same vibration to be able to see them. And I know that sort of sounds like I'm trying to, like, if I were to say that phrase to the wrong person, it sounds like I'm, like, being, like, it sounds like I'm ostracizing them and I'm being critical and I'm judging them and stuff. But, like, that's just my best guess as to how this may actually work, is that, like, it is like a vibrational frequency thing where, like, if you clear the dust from the lens of your heart and you take care of your body, you take care of your temple, you turn yourself into a better receiver and you actually open yourself up to more of what this reality is about. And I mean, like, there's a huge topic I've had in the back of my mind, but we didn't get into this topic. We talked about plain times before, and that's where it even gets into the conversation of, like, psychedelics and how they even play a role within the conversations of, like, Magick, Alien, and the occult. It weaves throughout all of them. But I mean, just an experience like that, sort of alluding to the idea that this reality is not as cut and dry as it appears to be, and providing an experience to the individual, but more so than anything, providing them with the understanding that, like, yes, like, as you said, like, there is more, and it's always there, like, all the time, and there's multiple different ways that we can connect and to be able to interact and work alongside with it. Like, I think that's the really cool idea, is that when we start to look at these aliens as not something separate from us, but rather like allies that are working alongside of us. That's a really cool idea. If you just want to expand upon that or anything.
Yeah, really something or someone that's been here since the beginning. Like, these are the gods of the Bible. These are the angels of the Bible. They've been here since the beginning. There's ancient cave drawings of them. There's, they're mentioned in every holy book on the planet, that they came, that they created mankind, that they tampered with mankind, they left, and they've been watching over us ever since. So it should alleviate some of the fear as far as we're just thinking that, someday there's going to be an alien invasion and they're going to come kill us. They were here when we were cavemen watching over us. They've been here the whole time, and they've helped us on many occasions. It's actually documented that they've helped us as far as making missiles that they wouldn't go off. There's some awesome footage of the asteroid that was going to hit Russia, or that did hit Russia, and right before it lands, there's a frame-by-frame analysis where they show some type of craft going through the asteroid and breaking it up, so that the impact was actually spread, and they actually lessened the blow of it. And there's so many different stories of these craft that appear during some really strange times, and they actually around different missile silos. They go there and they actually deactivate them. And there's been high classified people who have actually testified on these accounts. And you can watch a lot of these testimonies online, with the Disclosure Project and things like that. Really some interesting information, and I truly believe 100% that they are for the that they are here for the greater good of humanity. If they wanted to, they would have did that a long time ago. So
Yeah, like it's really interesting to think of the idea of aliens as sort of being like invisible babysitters for us, because we are really infants in so many ways, and I think if they're the ones up there flying around, they obviously possess some sort of expanded and higher level of conscious awareness in some degree. So I mean, I've heard a lot about that, about UFOs interacting and preventing us from destroying ourselves, but not even that. I think when you're talking about like nuclear explosions, we have to keep in mind that, again, all these layers of reality are in one place. So if a nuke goes off, it's not just affecting like our earthly plane, but it's actually affecting like other levels of reality too, which the aliens wouldn't be super happy about also. So, you know, they're protecting like the big picture as well. But yeah, again, there's a lot of stuff to talk about in terms of the aliens. Just kind of going upon like the topic of the occult, and I'll try and bring Michael on within this. What do you feel like is our understanding and even just like our perception of the phrase occult and ideas of occult, because I mean, again, like you said, occult just means hidden, and I mean everything that we've talked about the show could technically be classified as occult, so to speak. But do you feel that, have you been noticing even just within the last few years the transformation of our impression of what we associate or what we sort of think of as occult, and transmuting it from sort of like a negative thing into a positive thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I come from the Christian background, and that word is a scary word. That word is something to fear, because you fear the unknown, that which is hidden. So the church teaches you to fear that. Don't ask questions. Don't look into alternate realities. Don't look into anything besides the Bible and the instruction books we give you and your pastor. So once we start looking into the unknown, once we start asking questions, you actually become demonized within that community, and they really discourage that. So, but on the greater scheme of things, that's where I came from. But so I'm working to actually alleviate some of the hysteria and fear with that. And the Bible is full of esoteric understandings. The Bible is full of occultism. So it's really within the same, script that a lot of these people are reading. It's full of dark sayings, and you have to break it down, and the average layperson doesn't understand it. Only those who have been enlightened or those who have sought after the answers are going to get it. And the Bible is full of that. So, but I think so because a lot of people across the globe, across the planet, like we were saying, are having this awakening. So it's it's actually bigger than me. It's bigger than you, and we're just a part of it. So a lot of people are having this awakening. A lot of people are having these experiences, and so you're gonna find these phrases and terms that were once taboo becoming more in the open. And I think it's really a good thing.
For sure, man. And again, like that's where people such as yourself are doing it through the use of the magic that is their music, that is their art. And I think it's so awesome. And even just something that you were talking about at the beginning, I think it's a great role that as a teacher, we make each lesson relative to the student. And it's our job to sort of simplify it and be able to get a lot of this information and this awareness into the minds of the masses, and to be able to just like transmute culture as a whole. Like it is about the individual, but really it's about the body of culture, the body of the collective that is going through this process of the internal alchemy and transforming and rebirthing from within every single day over and over again. So I'm just going to bring on our buddy Michael, and then we'll pretty much be wrapping up the episode, but I'd like to be able to play a little bit more of another track of yours as we end things off. So Michael, just going to bring you back on. Just any other points that you'd like to just add before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I think this is a really good discussion, and I think this is one of those shows people should go back and listen to again. I think that, as we do move forward, our understanding for the things that were hidden are becoming more open. And I think the fact that we have internet now, which makes things so much more accessible, we can read books that we didn't have access to before because they were just in like somebody's basement somewhere, and now we have access to a greater method of connecting to each other, so we can actually dialogue about these things. And I think it's beautiful that we don't all have to agree on this stuff. And I think it's in those places where we all merge and then move away from each other that we get to understand our own relationship to these things. And one of the tenets in the style of witchcraft that I trained in is God is self, self is God, and God is a person like myself. And it really means for us to come into our own divinity and looking at what our relationship is to all these magical things that we're engaging, whether it be lucid dreaming, whether it be ritual work, whether it be reading sacred texts, and then setting that intention to apply it. Like, what are you doing with this stuff? Like, why are you listening to this show tonight? Like, why are you wanting to lucid dream? And taking that a bit deeper into your own experience and getting out in the world and exploring things like aliens and explore things that make you uncomfortable. Take a look at those things, because when it makes us uncomfortable, it's shaping us in some way. So, get out there and journal and keep listening to Paradigm Shift Radio.
And all the other awesome podcasts.
Yeah, and all the other ones. Every 1,000 show on blog comes out,
For sure. All right, so we just got to wrap this up here. We only got about 3 minutes left in the show, and I'm just going to do the quick button draw, and then Truth Seekah will end off just on a final note, and then we'll segue and we'll end with one of his tracks as we just wrap up the show. But this week's winner for the Conscious and Shifting Buttons, and again, you can order your buttons anytime through the main website, paradigmshiftcentral.com/buttons. Awesome stuff. I want to tell you more about them, so just message me online if you're curious. But this week's winner is Zell, a.k.a. Chris, who was actually in the cool Conscious Conversation hangout that we had the other day. So congratulations to Chris for getting those. I will send a message to him, and I'm pretty excited. I know he'll be happy about that too. So congratulations, Chris, and thank you so much to everybody who's been a part of this show. Please continue to share this show further, and by sharing this show, you're helping get these ideas into the minds of more people out there, and that's really where it all begins. It begins with these ideas, and ideas evolve into actions, and actions evolve into habits, and habits evolve into entire cultures being changed, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to, just make this world a better place for everyone, and moving out of ignorance and into awareness. So thank you so much, everybody who's been a part of this. And Truth Seekah, I'll just pass it over to you, and then we can end with one of your tracks. We can end with either Flay the Navigator, Meditation, or Mystic Mind. Which one would you prefer? Flay the Navigator. All right, so we'll go with that. So Truth Seekah, just any last points within just like a 45-second window.
Yeah, well, here it is. This is what it's about. It's about what the ancients told us to return to the ancient path, that we've gone astray, that we've gone away from spirit, and we've moved towards a more ego-driven, a more technologically advanced culture. And what all this information is about restoring the foundations. It's about restoring the information that is now basically lost to your average person, that to restore the information that our ancestors had about spirituality, about spirits, and about how they affect your life, and about all you need is to look within and find solace and speak to God and speak to your truth and speak to spirit. Just close your eyes, man. Go out into the open sky, gaze into the heavens, speak to that power, and if you're listening, that power will speak back. Thanks so much for having me on the show, man.
Right on, man. Right on. Really appreciate it, and would love to be able to continue conversations further. And so, again, you can find us at facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio. Check out the main page and connect with Truth Seekah at facebook.com/TruthSeekah, SEEKAH. You can find his page there and also his profile. Just add 777 onto the end. And, of course, you can add me at facebook.com/SkullBabylon, and check out my YouTube, youtube.com/SkullBabylon. It's got more videos going up there on the regular basis. The show's going to go off live in the next couple seconds for everyone who's been a part of it, but for those who are tuned into the recording, enjoy this extra bonus track, Flay the Navigator by Truth Seekah. Join us in the after party hangout. You'll find the link up for that. So, guys, join me in saying farewell to the internet. Michael, Truth Seekah, thank you so much, everyone. So, bye, internet. Bye, internet. Bye, guys. Bye, guys. All right, so thanks, here it is. Enjoy. One love. Thank you, too.
Say that we have to give up our perceptions of how it's supposed to show up.
Exactly. That's one of the main things, is people have a preconceived idea and they have a lot of demands, and they usually have to lose that before anything can happen.
Hypnotic, mystics, researching the records of Akashic. In the temple, I'ma lay prostrate like the mystics is and the prophets. Christian mysticism, practice biblical cryptic wisdom, cosmic universalism, trance and elevate past your schisms. Aesthetic intoxication, receiving the affirmation, offering prayers and supplication. The spirit is guiding my sanctification. Hebrews 6, I'm leaving the basics, staring at clouds and countless spaceships. Body goes numb as a great sensation. I wrap shit up to heavenly places. The energy, it enters me. I vibrate at a high rate of frequency. Eliminate all doubt and unbelief from within. I'ma transform mentally. Palms on the ground, fall to my knees. I begin to sweat and feel the heat increase. Life in the tongue power when I speak. I feel it move from my head down to my feet. I'm ascending the ladder. The weight of your glory I never did fathom. When we're alone in the zone, I feel like I'm surrounded by light and there's nothing that matters. Interdimensional beings, rebuking the demons that fleeing. Shamans and prophets believing around that are so far beyond that of which we are seeing. Another dimension, ascending the planes into ascension. Another decision, the things I've seen if I should mention. You radiate and shine bright, light up the night sky. I'm raptured up to a sacred place, illuminate my mind. Another dimension, ascending the planes into ascension. Another decision, the things I've seen if I should mention. You radiate and shine bright, light up the night sky. I'm raptured up to a sacred place, illuminate my mind.
Close your eyes and meditate, and let the forces of the universe take you to that sacred place. My soul navigates through the etheric planes. I was conceived through non-ether wave before the Big Bang. Extra-dimensional beings traveled here in cylinder-shaped spacecrafts, landed upon the landmass, created mankind, traveled through the mind and redefined the mind. The time traveler, the wormhole, it grabs ya. I've been space and time and matter. My soul folds and forms the Merkaba. I become the master of heaven and earth. For what it's worth, I search the cosmos for my spiritual birth. And there was the first stage of primary creation. We existed in gas pockets and mysteries of the universe. I unlock it.
Another dimension, ascending the planes into ascension. Another decision, the things I've seen if I should mention. You radiate and shine bright, light up the night sky. I'm raptured up to a sacred place, illuminate my mind. Another dimension, ascending the planes into ascension. Another decision, the things I've seen if I should mention. You radiate and shine bright, light up the night sky. I'm raptured up to a sacred place, illuminate my mind.
One short story I want to talk about was we had a bunch of people there and we're all sitting around the campfire and they're going, where's the ships, where's the ship? And the people are going, well, I'm here, you know, where are you? And they just weren't really doing their focus work or focusing on, you know, intention and creating that event. And this one little kid picks up a marshmallow, you know, that he was cooking, and he cooked it and picked it up and he started walking out in the field and he goes, here, Mr. Spaceman, he goes, I have a marshmallow for you like this. 2 ships just went, and they were there the whole time. They just weren't making it, they just powered up and then took off together and went off. It took this innocence of this kid, you know, to initiate that, to make it happen.
Eye of illumination, receive insight during meditation. See my spirit take flight to rejuvenation. When I look up to the heights and I'm praying they come, they come, they come. Yeah, and I'm praying they come, they come, they come. And so here they come. When the stargate closes, better believe that another one opens. Releasing the fear, I'm golden, holding on to the hope and holding the light of my ascended master. UFOs up top my chapter, chariots of fire travel down and save us from disaster. Another dimension, ascending the planes into ascension. Another decision, the things I've seen if I should mention. You radiate and shine bright, light up the night sky. I'm raptured up to a sacred place, illuminate my mind. Another dimension, ascending the planes into ascension. Another decision, the things I've seen if I should mention. You radiate and shine bright, light up the night sky. I'm raptured up to a sacred place, illuminate my mind. Another dimension, ascending the planes into ascension. Another decision, the things I've seen if I should mention. You radiate and shine bright, light up the night sky. I'm raptured up to a sacred place, illuminate my mind.
There's an old saying, you know, you have to become like a child before you enter the kingdom of heaven. Well, this is heaven. Heaven is coming to earth, and it includes all these ultra-dimensional beings and masters and angelic beings and everything else. But we have to let go of our impatience and our demands and our arrogance and all of this stuff, and again become more innocent in awe and allow this to happen.
All right, that's the show. Thank you so much for listening. One love. See you next time. Peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of Paradigm Shift Radio. If you would like to connect with people where you are and continue the conversations further, then check out ParadigmShiftCentral.com/buttons to order your supply of shift buttons to share with people to help invite them to this global project while also helping make new friends and building local community where you are. Shift buttons are tools to hack the matrix and tap into the synchronistic nature of reality to accelerate our collective awakening. Enter the promo code PSR into your order to receive additional bonus buttons to your supply. Thank you again, and one love.